This is about the idea in the middle. And it's quite fortuitous, isn't it, that I'm the middle of the speakers, because I'm going to focus on the idea in the middle. I don't know how that happened. Okay, so let's get started. It becomes quite clear, I think, when you first begin thinking about this, that there are ideas of every colour and shape and flavour. There's a good idea, there's a bad idea, a much better idea, a nice idea, a bloody horrible idea, a really stupid idea, a big idea, an old idea, a groundbreaking idea, a winning idea, a half-formed idea, absolutely no fucking idea, and of course the one that is paramount and made for our industry, someone else's idea. So I'm guessing, of course, that you're probably most interested in good ideas, yeah? Or perhaps even great ideas. Although, as I was doing this, I did think that probably an investigation into some bad ideas, or probably even the worst ideas of all time, might throw up just as much insight, actually. So maybe that's another one. That's another noisy thinking. And looking into those to see what seemingly works. There you go, there's another one, the workable idea. I don't know about that one. So it's hard to know what we mean, isn't it, when we ask ourselves, in the advertising or communication sense, what is an idea? It's all of those things that I have just listed. It's not really helpful to you guys to just say that, and we don't need a definition. But I did want to start by looking at this, not from the point of view of a definition. I'm not as interested in what an idea is as much as I'm interested in what an idea does. There you go. You can see that we did not collaborate on this, but great minds think alike, perhaps. I did, however, when I started this, think, well, I've got a little idea of my own. I'll ask some people about this. I do mean ask some people, I don't mean ask ad people, I mean normal people. Now, at JWT we have this proprietary research panel. It's pretty useful, especially for pitches, because you can go to 10,000 people and ask them something overnight and get all the data back in the morning. So for things that are last minute, this is pretty useful. I usually go to them and ask them about bread or banking, something like that. But this time, I put a really simple question to them. And I asked them, what are the greatest ideas of the last 100 years? And they're all incentivised with vouchers, so of course they were very keen to take part. Anyway, this is a bit of a tag cloud of what they said. As you can see, it's the internet, the mobile phone, television, electricity, car, flight, the aeroplane, penicillin, transplants, NHS, space. Space, yeah, space is a very good idea. Recycling, we'll come back to space later actually. Recycling, the washing machine, votes for women, contraception, equality, even sliced bread and surgery are in there. It's just kind of fascinating thing to do, really. Of the less popular ideas, but I think you'll agree the more interesting were these. Everything from flushing toilets to tea bags to porn. I'll leave it up to you to decide what way they are associated. But what I thought was quite interesting was that whilst, of course, you're always going to get, well, maybe not, you're always going to get people thinking of ideas as inventions when you ask the question, as I asked it, what are the best ideas of the last 100 years? They're going to say smartphone, aeroplane, cars, whatever. Actually, I thought what's interesting is all of the most popular ones were about connectivity, or at least the ability to make connections. Mobile phone, television, internet, aeroplane. It seems to me that the ideas that are most top of mind are the ones that we find most useful, and particularly what's most useful now, the TV, the mobile phone, the internet. These seem to be the three greatest ideas according to our poll. These are the ideas that put people in touch with each other. in some way. But also the car and the aeroplane, I mean, they let people connect across distances, right? So somehow the ideas that connect us to something or someone, or not connect, seem to be the greatest. So I'm going to come back to this idea about connectivity later on. I think it's really important. But first of all, this. Obviously, you can see through some of the ideas that came back, not a single brand idea came back in all of the responses. Now, we might not be surprised by that. But of course, we do think that brands exist as ideas. That's not what I'm going to talk about tonight. I think it's fair to say that there are broadly, in our industry, 3 idea layers in the idea cake. And I wanted to be quite practical in this little talk, so this is my little model of the idea cake. There's the brand idea at the top. This is really intangible. I suppose I think of it more as an ideology, if you like, a worldview, something that guides people to live a certain way or think in a certain way. And it has the power to create followers or fans, or even in some cases, disciples. Then at the opposite end of the spectrum here, bottom layer of the cake, this is the product idea. And that is the antithesis of the brand idea in some senses, because it's the thing that's really, really tangible. And it's more like our panel's responses, isn't it? It's more like inventions or innovations, the car, the washing machine, the Dyson. I'm interested in the bit in the middle, and that's the communications idea, or as we used to say before the dawn of the internet, the advertising idea. But how does one define this type of idea? Well, I think the only place to start, as I'm sure many of you will know, is James Webb Young. He was the head of JWT for many, many years in the States, and himself a brilliant copywriter. And of course he wrote the seminal text, A Technique for Producing Advertising Ideas. Now, people, this is a must read. This is less than 30 pages, right? It tells you in less than 30 pages how to have a great idea. So the first thing I urge you to do is to get out your smartphone now and buy it. It's about £7. Buy it immediately whilst I'm talking. Don't listen to me. Just buy this book. That's the best thing you could do, I think, in terms of understanding ideas. Secondly, he talks about the idea as the soul of a piece of communications. And I think that's exactly what the middle layer of the idea cake is. That's what we're addressing when we say communications idea. And as you can see, his definition of an idea is a new combination of existing elements. So to quote him, he says, the construction of an advertisement is the construction of a new pattern in the kaleidoscopic world in which we live. The more of the elements of that world which are stored away in that pattern-making machine, the mind, the more the chances are increased for the production of new and striking combinations or ideas. Okay. Now, if you can't be bothered to do it in your own head, check this out. So this is a site called IFFT. Now let me get this right. If this, then that. Yes. This is a site. Has anybody used this? Okay, so yeah. So you know, it's a site that allows you to combine and recombine digital elements to your heart's content until you come up with one amazing idea that you then pitch and get a venture capitalist interested in and then flog and make billions of, right? Because that's how it works. Back to the real world. This is actually, what it does is, if you want to combine elements, for instance, if you want the weather posted to your Facebook page or your friend's Facebook page before you even get up in the morning, then you can do it. You don't even need to think about these ideas. You just connect them, and it's a service, and it happens. They just appear. These are all of the channels. They call them channels, and you put a trigger point, a channel, and you put a channel and a trigger point together, and it combines them for you, and you've created a new service. But these aren't really ideas, are they? I think these are closer to little inventions. They're useful, and this site is really, really useful if anybody hasn't used it, but they're not meaningful. So the ideas we're talking about are communications ideas, and for me they're more than just useful and practical, they're conceptual too. So perhaps one might say that the best communications ideas are the ones that are both practical and conceptual. Google AdWords, Apple iTunes, Amazon Kindle. But conceptual and practical, that's just another way of saying meaningful, right? Let's go back to our cake again. So we've got brand ideas, ideologies, if you like, at the top. Let's say those are philosophical. We've got inventions and innovations at the bottom, and they're very practical. And we've got the middle layer. They're communications ideas, and the most important thing about those is that they are meaningful. So when we ask ourselves, what is an idea? I think we're actually asking ourselves, what is the meaning of meaning? No wonder it's fucking tough. I personally like this dictionary definition of an idea. An idea is a thought or suggestion as to a possible course of action. And I believe that an idea is a linking thing. I think an idea is a connecting thing. Let's go back to the theme of connectivity established earlier. And this is one of the reasons people identify the greatest ideas as being those to do with connectivity, those that connect people with something or someone they weren't before connected to. The internet, the mobile phone, the car, the aeroplane. Of course, I think the car will always trump the washing machine. And that's because the best ideas are those that bring about connectivity and not efficiency. So I'm interested in this because I think we're getting closer and closer and closer to answering the question, what does an idea do? Which is what Richard was also asking. And if an idea has a linking or a connecting job to do, what is it connecting together? So we saw that this is not as simple as just a recombination of existing elements, like on IFFT. That can end in something really useful, but it may not always be meaningful, which probably in turn means it's not memorable either, because you've got to make meaning to make something memorable. So I would again turn to James Webb Young, you'll be on page 5 already, I reckon, who also said of ideas, in advertising, an idea results from a new combination of specific knowledge about products and people and general knowledge about life and events. Simple as that. I believe he's onto something here. But to be even more forensic about this, I would say that what an idea does is it does link together two elements, but these elements are this. It links a what is with a what could be. Because if ideas, if they're anything, they are indeed a suggestion, a glimpse into another possible course of action. Ideas must have some originality. I haven't even talked about that because frankly I think that's a given. But they should also contain, for me, a sense of progress. Betterness, not just difference. That's what ideas do. They link what is with what could be. And I would further argue that mediocre ideas, or not very good ideas, or perhaps even non-ideas, are ideas that link what is with another what is. They don't take us anywhere. There's no bridge to something better. They don't show us that glimpse. And you know, you can look back at the Christmas ads. Some of the quite well-known ads at Christmas, I'm not going to pick on any in particular, but they did show us a glimpse into what is. And that was it. So what can you do to that, with that? It's not showing me anything that's better or anything that could be. And those are the ideas, I think, that fail. The fact is, if your idea can't make people see old things in a new way or see new things in an old way, then it really isn't an idea. It communicates nothing. It means nothing. There is no possible course of action flowing from it. It's just a statement of the way that things are. We tend to call that an observation, not an idea. So an idea is a meaningful link that you establish between what is and what could be. But I think one more thing. If you want your idea to be really well branded, to have substance and to have profundity and endurance, then you need an idea that taps into the ideology. Remember the top layer of the cake. A worldview that guides values and also sets behaviour. So I think an even better idea is a branded idea. And that is one which does not just connect what is with what could be, but connects what is with what ought to be. The reality and the ideology. It's an idea that has the echoes of an ideology somewhere in the surroundings. So for me, to make it really simple, my idea of an idea is that it's a passport to ought. I hope that that's sort of a practical way of approaching ideas. I mean, I was trying to show how we might build one and how we might analyse one, really, rather than how we might define one. So very, very simply, I mean, if I had to carry a formula around in my head, I'd say, and I wanted to build an idea, I'd go, well, what is and what ought to be? And then I think you'd wrap it up creatively and your solution would be an idea. Anyway, I thought I would just leave you with what I think is one of the greatest ideas in advertising or communications, as we now call it. This is an idea that is 75 years old, and it is Kit Kat and the idea of the break. So, just to use that model that we've just outlined, this is a brand that owns the idea of the break. It has done for a very, very long time. The product even snaps when there is a sound of a break. Every ad there has ever been has reinforced this one core idea. We've had people taking breaks from painting the road, from watching pandas in the zoo, from operating a crane. The point is that breaks are good for you. You ought to have a break because you ought to relax. That's how you can look at the logic of this idea. And the world is a busy and stressful and monotonous and sometimes worrying business. So it ought to make you smile. Have a break, have a Kit Kat. So, what happens when you ought to be up in space doing something really, really important, but you are grounded due to bad weather? I'll leave you with this. It goes something like this.
October 2012. The world is waiting for Felix Baumgartner to make an extraordinary jump. But as with that family barbecue, the weather gets in the way. So to show our support and give Felix a break from the frustration of waiting, we thought we'd give him a break by sending him a bar into space. With just your everyday weather balloon, some balsa wood, a GoPro camera, and some super sticky tape. Two hours later, we were floating at the edge of space, 22 miles up in the stratosphere, where no other confectionery bar has boldly gone alone. Hours later, the footage is back bouncing through space, this time via satellites, as we posted to Kit Kat's YouTube channel, Twitter and Facebook, all within 24 hours of having the idea. Interest in our spacebar took off as quickly as our balloon, with 10 million Twitter impressions, 6.5 million Facebook post views, and millions of pounds worth of PR value, including features on Mashable, ITN, CNN, Ad Age Pick of the Day, as well as blogs from Macedonia to Australia. But our favourite coverage was a thanks from Red Bull Stratos.